I'm not for illegal immigrants. But are you telling me you're okay if an American does this, but if an illegal immigrant does it?
I mean, if you can land it.
Look, Mike Rowe comes on our network all the time talking about a great program he has partnering with banks to help train people to do these kinds of jobs. I differ with you. The numbers don't support what you're saying.
Sure
we have an overflow of these jobs available, and we need more Americans to be trained to get them.
Hey, good to have you back on the channel. All right, so a Fox News panel sat down to talk about a nationwide crackdown on commercial truck licenses, and what starts as a safety discussion turns into something none of them planned for. Harold Ford Jr. is the only voice at that table pushing back, and he ends up asking Jesse a question so simple that Jesse's answer basically hands over the entire argument. Kennedy also says something in the middle of attacking a Democrat that quietly agrees with the exact policy she is supposed to be against. And Greg's opening response to a serious point about families, you have to hear it to believe it. Do yourself a favor and stick around to the finish, because the strongest moment of this whole thing lands in the last stretch, not the beginning. Also, I always love seeing how far these videos travel, so drop your city or country in the comments and let me know where you are watching from today. Let's get into it.
All right, President Trump giving big rigs a safety check, cracking down on illegal immigrant and non-English speaking truck drivers after a string of deadly crashes. So here's what the president said today.
American highways and roadways have been terrorized by unqualified illegal aliens dangerously driving big rigs, all because radical left maniacs at the state level have issued them commercial driver's licenses, even though they're not entitled to have them. Last year alone, illegal aliens with commercial driver's licenses caused at least 30 deaths and many, many very seriously injured.
The DOT revoking or canceling nearly 50,000 commercial driver's licenses after instituting a tougher English language proficiency requirement. But that has not stopped Democrats from going to bat for migrants instead of Americans.
They are some of the greatest patriots you will ever meet. They love this country, and they have been making positive contributions to it every day.
What we've seen is that instead of going after the worst of the worst, in many cases, they've gone after the best of the best. People that have lived here for decades, who have families, who have not committed any crimes at all, who have been productive members of society.
Greg, you had a reaction there.
Yeah, that hat. I need to get one. No, it drives me crazy because we're often accused of some kind of xenophobia because we are against illegal immigration, but they are the ones that are always conflating illegal with legal. You know, we're trying to present them with, two sides. Is it okay to have illegal truck drivers and people die or not? And they always choose the wrong side, and then they mask that choice under this lie of compassion. It's like, as if we're talking about punishing all immigrants. So they blend illegal with legal. It's not us. And then they literally blend it with policy and with rhetoric. It's like we have to remind them, no, we're talking about illegal truck drivers who don't have a valid driver's license and cannot read street signs. How much more specific can you get? Compassion is not compassion when it excuses destructive action. For every example where Democrats claim they're being compassionate, whether, again, felons, illegals, or trans, they create a mountain of victims. Compassion is recognizing another person's suffering, but their compassion relies on the indifference towards the victims of the people that cause the misfortune. It's not just a reflexive virtue signal. It's one that basically preserves future suffering.
Mm-hmm. And it is like they just bypass the fact that these people the people that were put up on the board there at the beginning caused fatal accidents because of basic errors, and they didn't speak English.
Yeah, and there's a difference between people who are volunteering in an orphanage and people who are carrying several tons of radioactive equipment or explosives, things that could enter into our food supply. Try getting a commercial driver's license in France. Try getting a commercial driver's license in any other country if you are a non-native speaker. It's tough. It should be tough. Some things should be hard. There are some areas where there are too many restrictions. There are too many occupational restrictions, like hair braiding. Hair braiding and commercial truck driving are two very, very different things.
This is the part nobody at that table wants to say out loud. A commercial license is not something you find in a cereal box. You test for it, you get inspected. So when nearly 50,000 of them get pulled in a single sweep, the honest question is not who was holding them. It is who issued them, who collected the fees for years, and who signed off on the paperwork. That question never gets asked because asking it points at people with offices instead of people with steering wheels. And you have to understand what that number 30 is doing in the announcement. 30 deaths is 30 families, and that is real. It also sits inside a year where thousands of people die in large truck crashes in this country. Exhaustion, impossible delivery windows, companies pushing drivers past what a human body can physically do. That is the thing killing people on those highways, and it has been for decades. But you cannot hold a press conference about scheduling software. Then Joaquin Castro says the thing that should have ended the segment. Joaquin said this: instead of going after the worst of the worst, in many cases they've gone after the best of the best. People that have lived here for decades, who have families, who have not committed any crimes at all. That is a checkable claim. You can pull the records and test it. And the response to it? Greg said this: yeah, that hat, I need to get one. That is the rebuttal. A man makes an argument about families and enforcement priorities, and the reply is a comment about his headwear. Then Greg pivots into a line he clearly workshopped in advance. Greg said this: compassion is not compassion when it excuses destructive action. It sounds profound. It means nothing here, because not one person on the other side is arguing that unqualified drivers belong on the road. Not one. He invented an opponent and then beat him on television. Then Kennedy reaches for hair braiding licenses, realizes halfway through that it cuts against her, and yanks it back. Kennedy said this: hair braiding and commercial truck driving are two very, very different things. Correct, they are. So why did you bring it up?
But what Mr. Castro did there, which I think betrays a little bit more of his argument than he thinks he does, he's saying there's a difference between the best of the best and the worst of the worst. Well, if you listen to people like Chris Van Hollen, there's no differentiation at all. And everyone who's here is amazing. Well, if Mr. Castro were really doing his job, then find a way in Congress to reward the best of the best, to reward people who have been here and who've been working hard and not breaking the laws. Make sure that they're the ones who can live and drive and work legally. They're not doing that. It's incredibly lazy. It is an abdication. But he's also saying there is a worst of the worst. There is a bad class of people, and maybe those people shouldn't be here at all.
And President Trump, Harold, is obviously he makes a lot of news every day. And you wonder, like, what headline does he want? And there are big things. Of course, the war is going to get coverage. But there are actions like this that really do affect lives that people who voted for him wanted. And he's delivering on those things. Even if sometimes it's a little bit hard, it takes a little bit of time, but he's actually accomplished quite a bit. Like this, something like this for the truckers is a big deal.
Yeah, he wants to recruit veterans, which no one would be opposed to. No one is opposed to. I can't think of a rational person to helping veterans get jobs. I think the indispensable workers in our economy, as we think about all the technological advances and even the introduction and ushering in of even more technology to our economy, are going to be people who can fix things, who can build things, who can repair things, and frankly, even people who can drive. I think driverless cars and autonomous automobiles and trucks, all that stuff sounds like something in a science fiction movie. I can't imagine being on the road all the time with those kinds of cars, but put that aside. We have a need now. And it is hard to believe you could get a commercial, to your point, Kennedy, a commercial driver's license and not be able to speak English if you are in a country where English is the predominant language. Now, I would also say we as Americans, one of the reasons that so many of these people are finding employment in these things is because we're not doing these jobs. We have to be honest with ourselves as a country that the work that needs to be done in our country, many Americans don't want to do it. Now, this is not a case for us to bring in illegals to do it, but we're all benefiting from when illegals are doing these jobs. So I would urge the president not only to make it possible for veterans to get the training to do these kinds of jobs, we ought to have a massive effort in DP. You've been as loud and constructive as anybody on this show about the ways we need to educate high school students and even college students, giving them the opportunity to gain these skill sets to work, to build businesses, and can build successful, thriving, economically successful businesses. So, Mr. President, I applaud the effort. But at the same time, when you finish berating Democrats, tell everyday Americans, we've got to start doing these jobs if we want these jobs to be filled by Americans.
They're also recession-proof, to your point.
Any way we want to describe, they're indispensable.
This is where the whole thing quietly falls apart, and I do not think Kennedy noticed she did it. Kennedy said this: reward people who have been here and who've been working hard and not breaking the laws. Make sure that they're the ones who can live and drive and work legally. Read that again. That is a pathway. That is the precise policy that gets screamed at as amnesty every time a Democrat puts it on paper, delivered on that panel as an attack line. She believes she is scolding Joaquin for being lazy. What she actually did was concede the argument and then dare Congress to legislate it, and she takes it back within seconds. Kennedy said this, but he's also saying there is a worst of the worst, there is a bad class of people, and maybe those people shouldn't be here at all. So which is it? Either you sort people by what they have actually done, which is the position she just endorsed, or everybody is interchangeable and the sorting is theater. You do not get both. Here is what people don't realize. This country has run the labor recruitment play before, openly, with signatures on it. From 1942 to 1964, there was a formal program that brought millions of Mexican workers into American fields and rail yards because the labor was needed and Americans were not filling those jobs. Congress authorized it. Growers begged for it. When it ended, the demand did not end. Only the legal channel did. That gap is the entire story of the last 60 years, and both parties built it together. Which brings me to Harold, the only person at that table doing arithmetic. Harold said this: one of the reasons that so many of these people are finding employment in these things because we're not doing these jobs. He is not being sentimental. He is describing a market. And then he does something on that network that took real nerve. Harold said this: when you finish berating Democrats, tell everyday Americans, we've got to start doing these jobs if we want these jobs to be filled by Americans. That is a demand for a plan instead of a villain. Nobody answers him.
I expected the commercial break to go to me last.
Thank you, Dana. I'm glad you did, because I want to disagree strongly with my friend, Mr. Ford. Americans do want truck driving jobs. Most Americans do these jobs. The jobs sometimes pay 6 figures. You know why they hire the migrants, right? Because you only have to pay them 30 G's. That's why. That's why they're doing it. So you have to choose. Are you going to support American citizens or are you going to support foreigners? You can't support both. Because if you do that, you're going to drive down the wages for the American workers. It's not that complicated. If I was to go to Russia and drive a big rig, and I don't know Russian, I'd crash it right into a liquor store, right out of the turnpike, right into the liquor store. I'd be doing that on purpose so I could raid it. But it's very difficult if you don't know the language. And it's not like every road you're driving on is I-95, and then you go to 78. Some of these are hard to read. Susquehanna Boulevard, Wiscasset Lane. Wow. If you know very little English, those are very difficult streets to be able to navigate.
Do you know what the big problem is? And because I've been on the freeway when this happens, is they don't read the sign that says your truck is too tall to go under the, and I've been behind a truck that's had its entire front ripped off because they don't read, yes, because they don't read and then it's all backed up, and it's because they didn't read the signs.
And then it breaks open, and it's a Twinkie truck.
It is,
and you're stuffing your face. One time, some guy, probably a migrant, going down the wrong way, was in one of those bridges that come up when the sailboat goes through.
Yeah.
Launches off the thing, does like a 360, and then lands it.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard style.
I'm not
hire guys like that.
I'm not for illegal immigrants. But are you telling me you're okay if an American does this, but if an illegal immigrant does it?
I mean, if you can land it.
Look, Mike Rowe comes on our network all the time talking about a great program he has partnering with banks to help train people to do these kinds of jobs. I differ with you. The numbers don't support what you're saying.
Sure
we have an overflow of these jobs available, and we need more Americans to be trained to get them.
They do it. They just want to get paid a fair wage.
But wait. Can we just go back to the initial point that the people were killed, and it's an inversion of the social contract. It's the people who follow the law absorb the consequences of those who don't.
Jesse jumps in to disagree and hands the entire argument away in one breath. Jesse said this: the jobs sometimes pay 6 figures. You know why they hire the migrants, right? Because you only have to pay them 30 G's. Stop. He just described the crime and named the wrong criminal. If a company is paying someone $30,000 for work worth 6 figures, that company is doing it. The driver did not set that wage. The dispatcher did. The freight broker did. The executive staring at a margin target did. And notice that in a whole segment about accountability, not one American business gets named, not one owner, not one fine. The person with the least power in that entire supply chain absorbs every ounce of the blame, and the people writing the checks never come up once. Then Jesse said this: "Are you going to support American citizens, or are you going to support foreigners? You can't support both." You absolutely can, and serious countries do it constantly. Enforce wage law, and you protect citizens and destroy the incentive to exploit anyone else. One policy, both outcomes. He needs it to be a choice, so the answer can stay simple enough to shout. And then comes the moment that ends this for me. Harold asks the obvious question: whether an American driving recklessly is fine, while an immigrant doing the identical thing is a national emergency. Asking, I'm not for illegal immigrants, but are you telling me you're okay if an American does this, but if an illegal immigrant doesn't? Jesse said this, I mean, if he can land it, there it is. 9 minutes about dead people and unread road signs, and the second a citizen is the reckless driver, it becomes a stunt worth applauding. That is not a safety position. That is a preference about who gets forgiven. Harold does not even blink. Harold said this: I differ with your side. The numbers don't support what you're saying. We have an overflow of these jobs available, and we need more Americans to be trained to get them. Source, calm, completely unanswered. He cites a guy that network books constantly, and the table just moves on like it never happened. And look, I want to be fair about the ending. The segment pulls back to the people who were killed, and those families do deserve seriousness. That is exactly my point. They deserved a conversation about wages, hours, inspection standards, and the companies cutting corners to hit a delivery window. What they got was a bit about a hat, a Twinkie truck, and a guy landing a drawbridge jump. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.